Hello, everyone, and welcome to Africa Fire Mission's weekly virtual training session. My name is Mike, and I'm the programs director here at Africa Fire Mission. We're so happy that you took time out of your busy schedules to join us for today's virtual training. Today, we're joined by Howard Cohen. Howard is our virtual training coordinator here at Africa Fire Mission, and he's going to be talking about after-action reviews today. Uh, Before we get started here, just a couple of administrative notes. If you stick around for at least 70% of today's training, which is usually about 40 or 45 minutes, you will receive a certificate of attendance for today's training. If you get cut off or you can't stick around for all that time today, we do have a Google Drive folder, which will have a recording of today's training as well as all of the other trainings that we've done so far this year. You can go watch a recording of the training, answer a few questions about what you learned, and I can get you a certificate of attendance for that training as well. Keep an eye on the chat. I'll post a link to that down in the chat in a little bit. You can also reach that on our webpage at www.africafiremission.org. If you go to the resources page and training materials, you can find that and a whole bunch of other free materials that can help you out with training and other fire prevention resources. Before we get started with today's training, I'm going to pass things over to Jose Najiri. Jose is Africa Fire Mission's Fire Safety Officer. He's going to get us started with a couple words of encouragement.
Thank you so much, Mike. I truly appreciate you and Howard for being here. Thank you so much. And you also being here. We don't take that for granted. So today, a lot of the encouragement was more of that you guys are the bravest in the sense that you show up when other people are going out of the burning building. Don't you ever give up. Keep on showing up, but also don't forget about yourself. Always after a fire scene, please go there and talk to your buddy about what you're facing. And one of the things that I would want to ask you to do this week is a customer service week. Be kind to the people that you're serving, even though that they don't appreciate you. Always know that we in the fire service appreciate you. Please don't forget to reach out to us and stay safe wherever you are. Thank you so much. Back to you, Chief.
Thank you, Jose. We appreciate you and everything that you're doing to help advance things in the fire service throughout all of Africa. I'll invite you guys to stick around. When we get to the top of the hour, we end the formal portion of our training, but then we transition into tea time. Tea time is a time where you can ask some questions about today's training or questions about any subject that might be on your mind. It's a great place to do a little networking and connect with the other firefighters from all over Africa. So if you've got the time in the bundles, I invite you to stick around for that as well. At this point in time, without further ado, pass things over to our pinch hitter here. Howard is going to get us started on today's lesson.
Hello, everybody. Good afternoon. It is morning where I am, and it's a chilly one as well. Let me just share my screen with you. Give me 2 seconds. Let's see. I want to see you guys. You want to see this? There we go. Get that down there. I hope you're all doing well. All right. So what I'm going to spend some time talking to you about is something called an after-action review, AAR. But before I do that, I want to thank you. Just as Jose and Mike has done, I want to thank you for giving up some time, your afternoon time to be here. I want to thank you for your service to your communities. And I want you to know how much I appreciate all that you do. And I hope that you appreciate one another as well. So thank you. And again, thanks for giving up some of your time to be here. So I'm going to talk about something that's called an after-action review. And it's actually not the sexiest part of being a firefighter, but it's also really important. This is the definition of after the AAR, the after action review. It is a professional discussion of an event after a response has concluded for the purpose of analyzing what happened, why, and how the response could be improved. I want to emphasize the word professional discussion. An after action review, also sometimes called a debriefing, is an opportunity for you to learn more about how your incident played out, what you could do to make it better, what you can do to make it safer. And it's not a criticism, it's not a judgment. It's truly just an analysis and discussion. Because as you know, everyone sees something different on the fire ground, depending on where you're stationed. And so this is a way to bring all the pieces together. The after action review was something that was actually developed in the 70s by the United States Army. It grew out of research and informal debriefings. Now, AARs are used in many different industries, including the fire service. Hospitals use them, and in fact, sports teams do too. So why do an after-action review? Well, here are the three main reasons. It increases trust among team members, when of course it's done properly. It improves the ability to deliver services, and it improves safety on the scene. Studies demonstrate that AARs have a demonstrable positive impact on the culture of organizations that use them. This is sort of a basic communications thing. If you can't trust one another, you can't talk with one another, and critically analyze what happened, then you don't trust each other. And if you don't trust each other to be able to do that, then it's going to carry over to trust on the fire ground or the accident scene. So the AAR is an important component in creating a culture of positive changes within a department. AAR debriefings, whether structured and formal, appropriate after a large complex event, for example, or informal, encourage a candid critique and evaluation of a crew's strength and areas in need of improvement. It's kind of like weeding a garden. It's like you plant all the seeds, you plant everything in your garden, and you have to go back and weed it a little bit. And that's kind of what an AAR is. It's weeding and saying, let's take a look. What did we do well? What didn't we do well? The key to successfully using the AAR is that it is done after every incident, no matter how small or seemingly routine, even after drills. As we know, any call, no matter how routine it may seem, has the potential to turn into something life-threatening. Thus, something innocuous learned in one AAR may very well be instrumental in avoiding something serious in a future incident. One reason why AARs, when done properly, are so effective is that they take the ego out of evaluating an incident. AAR is not about finger pointing, judging, or critiquing individuals. There is no rank, and everyone gets to speak. A professional AAR asks 5 simple questions. Question number 1, what was our intention? Now, there are some sub-questions to the main question number 1, and they are, what was supposed to happen? What actually happened? Why were there differences? But those are all getting at what was our intention. While there are different ways to organize an AAR, the original model structured around these 5 specific is structured around these five specific and open-ended questions. It's still probably the best way to do it. By the way, what I mean by an open-ended question is that it's a question that can't be answered yes or no. So what was our intention? You have to answer it with some content. You can't just say yes or no, maybe. And if your answer, I don't know, then that's a problem right there. The 3 questions under the heading, what was our intention, help to establish a common understanding of the response actions under review. Question number 2, what went well? You can read the sort of the sub questions that help to highlight or draw out that question. These questions generally reflect about the successes and failures during the course of the project, activity, or task. Asking why something happened or didn't happen helps to lead to an understanding of the root causes of the successes and or failures. So why sometimes though can lead us to judging, finger pointing. Well, why didn't it go right? Well, because you didn't do what you were supposed to do. That's not what we're looking for. Why didn't it go right? Why? Because not everyone had the right set of skills to do the job that needed to be done is a better way to answer the question. Why doesn't someone have the set of skills? Because we haven't drilled on it, or that person's a new to our fire station. Question number 3, what could have gone better? Or what would you do differently next time? Here it's really important not to finger point, not to say, well, it would have been better if you would have done your job. That's not what we're looking at. That's not helpful, and it's not useful in an AAR. It's not useful anywhere. So this question is intended to help identify specific actionable recommendations. The facilitator asks the team members for crisp and clear, achievable and future-oriented recommendations. Notice the emphasis on the language. We're looking for clear, achievable, and future-oriented recommendations. So it's not about what we could have done, what we should have done. It's about going forward, what would we do? How do we do it? And to be clear, very often after an incident, you'll hear the feedback, and I know Mike, I'm sure, can confirm this. We always hear, well, communications weren't good. Okay, we had a problem with communications. And then someone says, well, we have to improve in communications. Okay, we have to improve communications. But what does that mean, to improve communications on the fire ground? So you want to say, we need to learn how to use our radios better, or we need to be more clear with instructions. You want to be as specific as possible. And again, I want to emphasize, we're not talking about finger pointing. We're not criticizing individuals. That's not allowed at an AAR. Finding out what people did is not nearly as important as why they did it. In other words, if somebody didn't do what they were supposed to do, what's more important is to understand why they weren't able to do what they didn't do. We thought they were going to do. For example, why? Well, maybe there was no water for him to put on the fire. So the firefighter, why didn't he put water in the fire? Well, because no water had been delivered. Then that leads to the question, why wasn't water delivered? And how do we address that problem? Or it could be, why did we stick this new guy on this task that he didn't have the skills yet for? Or without any supervision. So you want to get behind it. You're not trying to criticize the individual. So also, an important part of an AAR is good active listening. You have to really be able to listen to what's being said and not get defensive, not be quick to want to answer, respond. A lot of times when we're in communication situations, someone says something and we want to respond to what they said. And so we're so focused on wanting to respond to what they said, we fail to listen to anything else they say, which often means we don't hear them say the very thing that we want to bring out. So you have to be a good listener when you're doing an AAR, and also it helps you when you really focus on listening. You're not paying it. It helps you to avoid judging or finger pointing. Also, being a good listener during an AAR doesn't mean you're looking to immediately solve or correct issues. You want to hear it out. You want to hear other people's perspectives. What you're trying to do is get to the root of any problems there might be. And in order to do that, you need to encourage everyone to speak their mind and not feel like, what they say doesn't matter. Question number 4. What should we have done differently? Okay, here's some of the sort of the subtext questions. What do we realize? What additional training do we need? We didn't do it right. What do we need? We need new training. How about what was our situational awareness? Do we fail to notice something that was a danger to us, a risk to us, something that we hadn't thought about in the past? I'm trying to think of, I know I've had some experiences in that, and I hadn't thought about this for a while, but we just didn't even think about that as a potential problem until after the event, and someone said, "Hey, did anybody notice X?" And we're like, "Oh, none of us paid attention to it. Why? It wasn't in our size up. We weren't aware that it was a situation, there was a hazard." And it goes to the next part where risks and hazards recognized. If you don't necessarily realize that something is a danger, then, you know, you have to you have to better inform yourself. And this all leads to a forward moving process. Do we need to change our policies and our procedures for this kind of situation that we're doing an AAA for? And that happens all the time. I know fire departments here, they respond to a situation and didn't go well, and they look back and they say, you know what, we developed this policy, 5 years ago for this kind of situation, but the situation has changed now because, the materials have changed. Or, for example, here's a good one. You have a policy or procedures for how to deal with car fires. Great. Now, does that policy or those procedures apply to electric cars? Probably not. So now we have to rethink, like, well, we can't do this the way we always have done it because we're not fighting the same kind of fires. We know that here also too because of the materials and structures. Fires burn faster and they burn hotter. So some of the stuff that a lot of us got trained on when we first got in the fire service, we've had to on-train and learn a different way because the reality is the situation has changed. So what would you do differently based on what you've learned? Number 5 is kind of really important, but it doesn't necessarily seem like it. And question number 5 is, who needs to know? Thing is, not sharing knowledge is a cardinal sin that could lead to the injury or death of one of your colleagues. Now, I have been told in my different trips to Kenya, and I if I'm speaking incorrectly, you can call me out. But I've been told that oftentimes folks don't want to share information because information is power, or knowledge is power. So if I tell you something that I know that you don't know, then I'm giving up some of what I have as power. Now, I know that happens here in the United States in a lot of situations. We think like, that makes me look how smart I am because I didn't tell anybody else that I know this. But the problem with that is that if you don't share something that could be save someone's life or keep them from getting harmed, then, you're not a trustworthy teammate. So no secrets. It's not okay to keep what you learned from your AAR to yourselves. So that means you need to explore or need to understand what your means or pathways for sharing information are. How would you, if you're a crew and you come back from a call and you discovered something that, it's something about maybe something in your equipment that didn't work right. So who do you tell? If you don't, you got to know what your chain of command is for communicating insights is. It's something you just have to, every department, every firehouse, every fire crew is going to do it differently, but you need to know. In my opinion, not sharing knowledge is a cardinal sin because it could lead to the injury or death of one of your colleagues. Well, we're going to skip this. It's just kind of a review of what the 5 questions are. But here they are. An after action review, it's 5 questions. Question number 1, what was your intention? Number 2, what went well? Number 3, what could have gone better? 4, what should we have done differently? And 5, who needs to know? One reason why AARs are so effective is that it takes the ego out of evaluating an incident. AAR is not about finger pointing. It's not about judging. It's not about critiquing individuals. There is no rank. There's no time. This is not the time to reprimand somebody. It's not the time for personal disputes to play out. Only issues that are related to the team's performance should be addressed, with the emphasis on the term team and we. Now, it's okay during an AAR to say, what could have gone better? You could have said, I could have placed the hose in a better position, or I could have brought a tool with me that I didn't bring. Now, you're just evaluating a task. You're not really, might seem like you're critiquing or judging yourself, but that's not really what's happening, in the sense of you're like, well, I didn't bring this particular tool with me. I know next time I should carry that tool. So sometimes you do personalize it, but not in terms of, reprimanding yourself. And certainly it's not up to you to tell someone else you should do that. It should be, we need to remember that when we respond, we should do something. So those are the 5 questions. So just a reminder, AAR is not about finger pointing. It's not about judging. It's not about critiquing individuals. And again, there is no rank and everyone gets to speak. This could be hard culturally. I know it's hard even when the culture, I know it's hard here because, it's hard to not see somebody as who they are, as, well, that's the chief or that's the captain and I'm just a lowly firefighter. But a good AAR says, no, look, chiefs and captains and line officers, they make mistakes. They have to constantly be evaluating themselves and they're learning too. So, this is not the time to reprimand, nor is it the time for personal disputes to be played out. So you want to keep the ego out of the AAR and you want to, stay focused on the task. Should you do this after every little minor incident? Well, yeah, the correct answer is yes. So how do you do it? Do you have to go through each of these steps? No. You get back from the firehouse and you say, hey, let's everybody gather around for a minute, everybody who was on this call. Any thoughts? What went well? Did you learn anything? Did you discover something you didn't know that you want to share? A quick, check-in like that could be really, really valuable. You discover one of your important tools is not working. So you know that, but does everybody else know it? No, not necessarily. So now you can have the chance to say, hey, I'm glad we're doing this because I discovered that our such and such, is not working. We'll need to replace it or fix it. So that's also why they're useful. It doesn't have to be just a major event. Big events also require them, but they require more structure. So I think I have some kind of question and answers here. If you want to put them in the chat, that's fine. But you could just answer the questions to yourself. So when do you do an AAR? Answer: as soon as possible after the action to be reviewed. Ideally, immediately after, once you're in a safe place. That could still be in the fireground. Everybody's wrapping up, putting all the equipment away, and you say, hey, let's gather around the back of the apparatus, and then off you go. So yeah. Question: who participates in the AAR? Everyone involved. Yeah. You don't necessarily need to have other people who were involved attend. They could attend, but they shouldn't really participate. They want to listen in, that's fine, but it's really the people who are there are the ones who should be doing the talking. Question: where should we do the AAR? Answer: anywhere. You could do it on the bumper of your fire truck, you could do it in the back of the firehouse, or somewhere where you can talk candidly. I wanted to emphasize this candid part. You want to be able to talk in a way that it feels safe. And so you need to be in a place that feels safe. And that might be, in a room where you can close the door and tell people, hey, you weren't on this call, so you're not welcome, which is okay to do. Or you just want to be able to speak freely. You also don't want to be someplace where you might be overheard by civilians, because you don't want someone to hear that maybe what you could have done or should have done, and they don't understand the context in which you're bringing that up. And next thing you know, you hear in the newspaper or you hear in the on the on Facebook, oh, the firefighters from such and such firehouse said that they should have done this and they didn't do it, and now you got a mess on your hands. So, what if you don't do AARs in your fire brigade? How can you start the practice? Pretty easy. There are 6 steps to bringing AAR into your firehouse. Number 1, create an operating SOP or SOG, if you have those, that documents the purpose of AAR and how it's to be done. In other words, you want to almost like canonize. You want to make it an official action that you do, that your fire brigade does. So I assume that most of you guys work with SOPs or SOGs. I know it's an assumption, but I also know that a lot of volunteer fire departments here in the States don't have very good SOPs or SOGs. But an SOP or SOG is what you're supposed to do, how you do things. So hopefully you have some. So you want to standardize it. You want it to be part of not just a verbal thing that we talk about doing, what we're going to do, but it's like, this is part of your fire response. You do an AAR afterwards. Number 2, you provide training to department members who will most likely be the ones leading AARs. In other words, you teach a few people how to be facilitators. Not everyone needs to be a facilitator, but so you get a little training. It's a little bit of communications. How do you help people? How do you ask questions and so forth? Not a big deal, but you get a little bit of training for people. So you got people who are like, yep, maybe every crew or every shift is going to have someone who's trained to be a facilitator, so you can know it's always going to be covered. Number 3, support open communication, but by providing a safe place where the firefighters can freely and without fear of judgment, where they can talk. This is hard. We have a tendency, all of us I think have a tendency to be kind of judgmental. Part of it is the competitiveness. We want to move up the ranks. We want to look better than the next guy because we want to move up the ranks. So that could create an environment where we're not comfortable, admitting acknowledging mistakes one way or the other. So it's you want to really try to support the opportunity to speak freely in an appropriate time and place without fear of judgment. Number 4, commit to making sure to always making time for an AAR after every call. You get into the habit of saying, whether it's you're the facilitator or not, you get into the habit of saying, we're having an AAR. Let's do it. We need to do it. Get everybody together. We need 5 minutes. We need to just touch base and just a quick, AAR on this incident. Call it a debriefing if you want, or call it something else. But it's an AAR. Number 5, make sure that there's a process for recommending policy and training updates based on AAR feedback. In other words, simply put, you've got the AARs going on. What are you going to do with the information? Make sure that there's a way to transfer that information that comes out of the AAR to whoever's supposed to get it. And every fire brigade, every organization is going to have a somewhat different structure. Sometimes I know in a lot of volunteer fire departments in the States, information like that just needs to go directly to the chief. But in a bigger department, it might go to whoever might be a battalion chief, or it might be, the captain for your shift. So it really varies. So just know what to do. So you have someplace, what to do with the information when you're as you're using it, as it develops. And number 6, make sure there is a way for communicating AAR findings to everybody in the organization. This last step not only shows that the process has positive effects, but that the information gleaned from an AAR might also save someone's life at the next call. This goes back to sharing the information. Sharing, making sure everybody knows what's going on, what you've learned. I just want to say, knowledge is dangerous if you don't share it, and that undermines a sense of trust in one another. If you know something that could keep me safe, but you don't tell me, I'm going to be kind of, pissed at you for not letting me know that that situation was, that's something that I could have avoided a problem. So it's important to share. Sometimes when you have a temporary task group or team that's put together for a specific or one-time assignment, the standard format may not work, especially if many of the participants are not familiar with it. In this case, asking 3 simple what questions may provide useful feedback regarding the recently completed activity. In other words, you're working with people you don't know. So there's already not exactly a high level of trust, and maybe they're not familiar with this process. So you use the 3 what approach. What was the team's main effort or focus for this event? What is the purpose of reviewing this event? What expectations do you have for today's discussion? Pretty straightforward. What was the team's main effort or focus? Well, that's also what was the intent. Why are we doing this review? What is the purpose of reviewing this event? Well, because we want to find out if there's anything we need to know. And what expectations do you have for today's discussion? To learn anything that I might be useful to me. It's pretty much what the 3 whats are. Sometimes when you have I already said this one, the what approach, next, so here's what you do. You gather observations on what actions were effective and what actions were problematic by asking, so what? So what are your general reactions after this event? So what specific things were difficult or created friction during the event? So what positive actions occurred during the event? You could drop the what and just say, what are your general reactions? But you see how it's getting at. It's like, it's getting at data, not opinions, not emotions. It's getting at factual things. General reactions are, I was pretty scared when I saw it because it was, it looked really dangerous. Okay, that is more of an emotional thing. But it's trying to get at stuff that's deeper. Then you finish by asking, now what? Okay, so let's go back. Got myself a little backed up here. Let's see. So what are your general reactions? So what specific things? So what positive actions occurred? The what approach. Now we're asking, now what? Now what learning points can we take from this event? Now what follow-up action should happen? Now what aspects should be worked on first? Now what would the consequence be if there is no follow-up action? It's really just kind of a way of drilling down on the what's. What happened? What do we want to happen? What happened? What do we want to learn from it? All right, this is kind of wrapping things up. After action review, ask 5 questions. What was our intention? What went well? What could have gone better? And what should we have done differently? And who needs to know? 4 what's and a who. By the way, I do repeat myself a lot when I'm teaching. I generally use a teaching model that says, I'm going to tell you what I'm going to teach you. I'm going to teach you what I said I'm going to teach you. And finally, I'm going to tell you what I told you I was going to teach you. So if it seems like there's some repetition here, there is. It's intentional because I want to drive home some basic points. Again, another basic point here is that AAR is effective because it takes ego out of the evaluation of the process, of the incident. It's not about me. It's not about what I, good, bad, or indifferent. It's about what did we do? What happened? What could we have done differently? So if I've said it once, I've said it twice, I've said it 100 times. AAR is not about finger pointing. It's not about judging. It's not about critiquing individuals or even ourselves necessarily. There is no rank and everyone gets to speak. Because everyone gets to speak doesn't mean you have to, but it means you have the permission and opportunity to do so. The conversation must have a certain level of candor. In other words, it must be honest. and it must allow also individuals to emotions to surface. Um, it's I think I may have sounded like I'm contradicting myself here by saying it's about trying to get data and information, but it's also about letting people, express themselves about what it was like, what they were experiencing. It was really, really frustrating for me to be standing there holding the hose line, holding the branch, and there's no water. Okay, we hear you. It was frustrating for you. We're not blaming anybody for it, but we're saying, okay, we've got to make sure that what do we learn? We have to make sure we have to get water to the branches faster. All right, something like that. AAR is not a time to reprimand anybody. It's not the time to say, you screwed up, it's your fault. Um, and it's not about the time for you to play out your personal disagreements with people. You're really focused on the team's performance. Again, AAR is not a critique. It's not meant to assign blame. It's an open and honest discussion and a professional discussion. In a sense, it is still a critique. I should edit this out. Because you are critiquing in the process of the discussion, but you're not assigning blame to anybody. That's really the big difference. So I'm about to wrap up, and as I often do at my trainings, I like to bring this quote in from Kurt Wagenbach, who was a retired Vermont state trooper. He says, we don't rise to the occasion, we fall back on our training. So I want to say it's just really great that you're here, pursuing your training, your skills, and I hope that in some small way I've been able to contribute to that and make and share something with you that you can bring back to your fire brigades. So, as a man of the cloth, as they say, I'll bring God into the conversation and say, have faith in God, but trust in your training. So on that note, I'm going to wrap up, and we have plenty of time for questions if there are any, and comments or reactions, and there you have it. So thanks for being here.
Alrighty, thanks, Howard. Just some 2 points maybe we can talk about a little bit yet. As a leader, when you're starting these after action review discussions, sometimes things can get a little out of hand, and some of those things that you talked about that we don't want start to take place. Can you talk a little bit about how a strong leader would sort of help guide these discussions a little bit?
Oh, it's a great question. Well, one of the things that's helpful to do is to establish ground rules from the get-go. So you would say something along the lines of, okay, we're going to spend some time talking about what happened. Here's rule number one, you can't interrupt somebody. You have to let them finish what they're saying. Okay? Rule number two, if you need to take a break because you're getting heated or you're feeling agitated, take the break if you need to. Also, it's really important to ask everybody to listen carefully, to be an active listener. If you need to ask questions like, appropriately at a breaking point, can you clarify something for me that you're saying? Or, I'm not sure, are you saying, and then repeat back in kind of a clarifying way. That's for anybody and everybody. But if you're the facilitator, you need to be able to step in and say to people, if someone is talking too long and going on or getting off topic, you need to step in and say, I'm going to cut you off here. I need to interrupt you. I need to, we need to pause now because I think we're getting off topic. You need to be paying close attention so that you can help to keep people on task and look, guided. You don't want to reprimand anybody who sort of interrupts. You just need to, respectfully say, hang on, let such and such person finish, and then we'll ask your question. Sometimes you might need to use, ask people to raise their hand before they speak. You set up a method of like we're going to go in a structured way. Everybody around a circle, excuse me, everybody around the circle gets to talk, and when it's your turn, you get to say something. Um, that's one way to manage a discussions. Um, you can also, as a facilitator, sort of step in if someone starts to respond and say, let's just hear what everyone has to say before we, ask more questions. So you can manage depending on the folks that you're with and the level of intervention or directiveness that need to use. But the key thing is to emphasize for people to listen. Um, just to really be focused on, I'm listening to what you say. Also, it's also nice to say after someone speaks to say, okay, I hear you. I hear what you're saying. That's a good point. Or thank you for sharing that. So you're acknowledging someone that said something. That's also can be useful. So. But when you're in an AAR, it's also really good to be able to say when someone brings something up, you to say something like, I hear what you're saying. What do you think would be a way to address that going forward for us? So you're shifting into that future kind of orientation. You brought up a really good point. What do people think would be a good way to prevent this from happening again? That sort of thing. So I think that gets to your question. Yeah.
Absolutely. Now, what if we take the discussion in the opposite direction, where we're lacking that strong leadership, and our leadership doesn't want to participate in this? How can we hold an AAR without our leadership? Should we do such a thing? And how do we go about that as well?
Well, first of all, I want to say that uh, I think I'm hearing you say when you talk about leadership, I think I'm hearing you talk about rank versus rank and file. And so the key thing about an AAR is that it's not about rank. So, you know, your officers, the officers, rank and file, the higher ranking people might not be supportive of this in the sense of, I don't want to make an SOG. I don't want to make it required. I don't see the point of that. That's fine. But you come back or you respond to a call, you guys are leaders for one another. So leader and leadership is not a rank, it's not hierarchical, right? So I just want to emphasize with the AAR, three or four of you respond to a call, the three or four of you do an AAR. Fine. You don't need the chief to tell you that you should do that, because you know that you could see the value of doing it for yourselves and for your fire brigade. So you did the AAR without official sanction, although you don't want to be violating the directions of your the orders of your chief, but so you've done it anyway. Now you take the information and you share it with the other people in the fire brigade, and you say, hey, we were doing an AAR at the end of our last call, and this is what we learned. Well, a couple things happen. One, you're sharing information with them that could be valuable, and they're like, oh, appreciate that. It's good to know. Thanks for doing that. But the other thing is that they might say, wow, that was a pretty cool technique, pretty cool thing you did. I want to do it with my crew after our calls. So you can almost have you kind of push up against the leadership, the rank leadership, by showing them this is a really good thing. And um, and it's making you a fire brigade, a better team of firefighters, first responders. So that's how I would approach it. If your senior officers are not embracing it or in an enthusiastic or in any kind of embracing it, I would say fine, then just do it informally from the bottom up. And truthfully, if you just practice the three what questions, you know, that's itself would be really valuable for you guys. Just the three whats, just to make sure you're just checking in after every incident, saying what went, what did we learn, what are we gonna do different. So
Excellent. Thank you, Howard. At this point in time, we'll open up questions to the floor as well here. So I'll adjust a couple settings here and let you can either type a question in the chat, you can use the raise hand feature, or you can unmute yourself and talk to us. Maybe share your experiences with after action reviews, or how you find them valuable, or maybe something that you learned during one. The floor is open for you guys to join in the conversation.
I guess I stunned him into where's Adelino? He always has a question.
Hi.
Oh, go ahead. Thanks.
Yes. In fact, today it's a very wonderful topic, and we learn a lot of this AAR. And actually, we need to implement it in our workplace. This is a very wonderful class of today. Congratulations, instructor.
Thank you. I appreciate your positive feedback.
Howard, from a fire brigade perspective, what does it cost to implement this program?
It costs nothing. It is the cheapest form of training and development that you can use. It just, oh, I suppose I could say it costs a few minutes of time. Um, and it costs being willing to be vulnerable and build trust with your colleagues. But in terms of dollars and cents, or pounds, or I forget what the name of the
Shillings or
shillings.
kwacha? Yeah.
In terms of those things, doesn't cost a penny. It doesn't cost a penny, but will pay great dividends. And the cool thing is that
Yes, I agree with you. It doesn't cost anything.
doesn't cost anything.
It's just we need to have time and dedication to implement.
That's exactly it. You need and it doesn't necessarily have to take a lot of time. Doesn't have to look.
Yep.
Vast majority of our calls are pretty simple things. You know, what do we learn? Here's what we learned here, and it's a simple thing because we'd get a lot of calls, and I'm sure Mike experiences a lot of calls for smoke detectors going off. So okay, in the middle of the night, you go to respond to the smoke detectors going off in someone's house, and oh, they need new batteries. Well, an after action review or a 3 what thing is like, well, we better carry spare batteries with us because, you know, otherwise, who knows whether it'll ever get fixed. So we all started carrying batteries, at least in our truck. So we always had them available for us. Simple thing. Didn't cost anything to have that conversation, have that insight. So they don't all have to be the net result doesn't have to be anything dramatic. So
Sometimes right before you leave the incident, you can cover all that, on a simple incident where you really didn't do anything. You can have that conversation in a group before you climb back in the truck, right? Uh, you can have
Edwin,
that conversation in the truck while you're riding back. If it was a more complex incident where you have some equipment to clean up as everybody's working together as a team to clean up the equipment, you can have that conversation. So it's easy to find time for these.
Edwin asked, where will this material be available? And yes, I think there'll be on our Google Drive and on YouTube. The recordings of these videos it's available. The and it'll have the video. The recording will have the PowerPoint with it. And if you want the PowerPoint independently, then you can contact me through Africa Fire Mission, and we can get that available. Neutron, you have a question?
Nitron, go ahead, sir. How's life in Blantyre?
Mike, do you have the link for the where the Google Drive link or the where people can get videos? Because there's another question they're looking for the PowerPoint for this or this presentation.
I
Hello,
can drop
Cohen.
that. So.
Up there it is.
Go ahead, Nitron.
Actually, it is a good topic. At least to learn more, I understand learning is a process whereby actually, as the question which at least Mike was putting, it's what I had mainly, because all what you have said, it starts with the leadership style. And to the people or to the folks we have learned about this, I believe as leaders, we are the one to be in front to adopt the system. So if the leadership we want adopted, we want put in place, I understand we can still have some challenges to have AAR to achieve in our fire stations. So, since you have brought this on this day to us, I believe all of us, we have learned today. It should be our time so that at least we take it to all our stations, more especially when we have attended or we have been called to a fire scene. Then we start little by little bringing this system. Then if it is going to be with us, I believe it will make a difference in fire stations. That's my comment regarding to what we have learned today. Keep it up. It's a good topic. Thank you.
Nitro, I think you're absolutely right with your points. I want to refine it a little bit here. If it's always better when the leadership from the top and ranking kind of leadership wants to initiate, positive changes within fire brigades to improve the quality, improve the culture, improve the effectiveness, et cetera, et cetera. On the one hand, on the other hand, if they don't, and as we all know, we've all found ourselves under leadership that was stuck or are resistant to making positive changes. AAR is one of the things that we can do regardless of what the senior leadership is doing. And I think everything you said, Nitron, is exactly 100% right. And don't let leadership that is don't let your senior leadership that's balking at bringing in new stuff keep you from doing something that you can. It's hardly against any policy, not using any money, not using any equipment. You're just having a few minutes of conversation. Can't go wrong.
Excellent. I think on that note, we're going to wrap up the formal portion of our training here with a big thank you to Howard for stepping in here today and leading us on today's topic based on the comments in the chat. What we've heard here was a really valuable lesson. Thanks for that. Thanks to all of you for attending too. We understand that this costs you a little bit with your internet connections and your bundles. We really do appreciate you doing what you can to better yourselves, to better serve your community. So a big thank you to all of you for giving up your time to come and do some learning today. We've got plenty of seats in the room here. If there's somebody that you think may benefit from our trainings, please feel free to share those registration links and invite them to come on and join us as well. Thanks again to everyone, and I hope to see you all again next week.